What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Wilner P. Joseph. I'm your host on the Smile Through the Fire podcast show.
And I'm your co-host, Max.
Here we talk about healing, hope, and the strength it takes to rise after life's hardest moments. Because resilience is the new revolution, your story matters to us. Let's go. Let's start this fire podcast, and we coming for the #1 spot. Peace. Smile Through the Fire, episode 3. We got a wonderful guest today. I'm your host, Wilner P. Joseph.
I'm your co-host, Max.
And we are here today. I can't wait to introduce you guys to our guest. Let me just give you the background of our guest today. She's an amazing entrepreneur, strong mom, community leader, philanthropist. Went from CNA to LPN. From Connecticut, Black-owned, beautiful queen. And we are excited to introduce y'all on the Smile Through the Fire podcast show today, Kebra Smith-Bolden, a.k.a. LaShawn. What up?
What's up?
I knew the a.k.a. was going on, girl. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You look wonderful. You look great, girl.
Thank you.
You got the nice chocolate going on. You know what I mean? You know, how you feeling though? How's everything?
I feel good. A little, this morning, the last 24 hours has been pretty busy.
Okay.
But I feel good, coming at the end of a cold. But all is well.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy you made it here safe.
I'm happy
welcome
I
to the
did
show.
too, and thank you all for being patient with me today.
Absolutely. Listen, patience is everything.
Yes,
I'm happy that you're here. I'm excited to really, get right to it and get our viewers to really know who you are and excited to share your story and, welcome.
Thank
so
you.
Let's get right to it, Max. You know what I mean? She's here, y'all. Let's get to it. So, our question that we usually ask our guests when we first start off is, who are you? Who's Kebra Smith-Bolden, a.k.a. LaShawn? And where you from? And tell us a little bit about who you are.
Okay, Kebra Smith-Bolden is first and foremost a child of God.
Amen.
He
Amen.
has blessed and shaped and purposed my life, and I'm so thankful to be aware of that and to every day be guided through that purpose. I'm a mother. I have 4 children, including a set of triplets. I have a 31-year-old daughter, and she's married, and they have 2 sons.
Hold on.
She's a grandmother.
31-year-old.
Yes.
Triplets and a grandmother.
I'm a grandmother. I have
So
2.
listen, y'all. She looks amazing.
Oh,
For someone to have a 31-year-old and triplets, you're doing something great. So you gotta. So the fact that you are a healer and you into health and wellness, you're gonna give us the secret to why you look the way you look.
Well, the most common is black don't crack.
So where are you from? Where you born and raised?
Born and raised in New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay.
My mother was a transplant, part of the Southern movement up to Connecticut in the 60s and 70s. My grandfather moved here, brought my mom. She had me when she was 16. My father was, he was a football star, two little teenagers getting together. And so I was my mother definitely raised me. At 16, she said, she didn't have a lot to offer me, but she gave me to God, and so she kept me in church, and, she did her best in that way. But my grandparents were very integral in my rearing. Actually, my mom lived with her parents, of course, at that time, so we lived with them for years, and then my father's family was also very involved in my upbringing.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, you spoke about your father. I met your father recently at the Gun Lines event. And,
okay, he's colorful, isn't he?
Yeah. Very interesting guy, man. He told me his whole life story.
I bet he did.
And I want you to share a little bit about your father a little bit, because I think sometimes, young girls that grow up in inner city neighborhoods, we don't really have our fathers around. But tell us a little bit about your father. I know he was a really big time football star. He shared to me, and tell him how did he play a major part in your life growing up in New Haven, Connecticut?
Well, he really did.
Okay.
For the first couple of years he was here, but when I was about 2, he had an incident that happened, and so my grandmother sent him to live in Arizona.
Wow.
So he pretty much, I mean, I saw him a few times throughout the years, but pretty much he was absent from my life for about 40 years.
Wow.
He had some issues. He struggled with addiction most of his life, but was always a very functional, he's a car salesman, so he's got a good talk game. Always had the best clothes, the women, but cocaine was as
But that was like the drug back in the day, right? That was like if you were like using cocaine back in those days.
It was kind of cool.
It was kind of cool, and you kind of had a little bit of money because back then, you had to be kind of,
he wasn't broke.
He wasn't broke playing with cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but I think with most people, you might play with cocaine for a little while, but then if you move into different forms of cocaine, like crack cocaine, that's a whole different element, and so it did evolve to that, and he was absent, from all of his children's lives on different levels. But we always kind of knew where he was and what he was up to. And so about 3 or 4 years ago now, he was having issues in Arizona, called me and was like, I want to come back to Connecticut. And so we facilitated getting him moved here and supporting him. And some people have to learn their own way. So at this point, after, supporting him here, I've kind of let him be free to figure it out. Yeah. And I pray for him often, and we talk regularly. Yeah. I mean, he likes to talk. So we do that. So I said we have a fair relationship, but, I did not have the benefit of a father growing up in the inner city. And so you can imagine the difficulties, the traumas I've endured, the things that have happened, because I'm like everyone else who's
absolutely
reared in the hood.
So growing up in New Haven, as you know, in the early 70s, 80s, 90s, it was very rough. Mm-hmm. You growing up with a single parent home with your mom, who was a very strong woman. Mm-hmm. What was that like? How was she able to really support you guys? So how many siblings do you have?
So I was the only child for a very long time. So I have on both sides 3 siblings. So I have 2 brothers and a sister on my father's side, and 2 brothers and a sister on my mother's side. But I was 12 when my mother had her. My brother, by a marriage that she was in, and my brother on my father's side is 6 years apart from me. But my sisters on each side, so I have a sister who is the same age as my triplets. Wow. So on my father's side, so she's 24, and I have a 28-year-old sister on my mother's side.
Wow. Those are the cool aunties.
You would think, but it doesn't necessarily always pan out that way.
Wow. So. Just want to dig into who you are and what you do. Just when I first met you the first time at the gun violence rally, we kind of clicked very, very immediately, and I just loved your energy. You were a great host. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
And I gravitated to you very quickly, and I wanted to really know more about you, and I was curious to know who you are, because there's something about you that you had this light about you. And I think I said it to you. I was like, we need to connect. So what got you into the medical field? I know you were a CNA and you came to LPN. Tell us a little about that.
And an RN. And I'm working on my doctorate right now.
I like that. Talk that talk, man. That's that boss talk, y'all. That's that boss talk.
In a minute. But I think I always wanted to be in healthcare. Well, as a kid, I always had a cash register. For some reason, and a doctor's bag. So healthcare, I always thought I always planned on being a doctor. My childhood was extremely significant in shaping who I am today. I think because, again, I grew up in the inner city. My mom had me when she was 16. She did the best she could, but she would send me to babysitters and things, and that's not good for a little girl. Mm-hmm. I've had several traumas that have. I'm blessed that they haven't made me angry or bitter or evil, but have made me sensitive to the needs of others and wanting to help. So I think that kind of like started to build my desire for the field of helps. But when I went to college, I was a biology major. They didn't have like a nursing program.
You went to
Northeastern, correct? Nope. So I went to Morgan State.
Morgan State. Okay, HBCU. Okay.
I received the full
scholarship. My daughter's an HBCU graduate.
Yeah.
Shout out to my daughter Kayla, graduated from Clark.
Hey, okay. So, and I got into Clark too. That was one of my schools. But when I was 17, I got pregnant.
Wow.
And so I had my daughter my senior year in high school. And I also forgot to mention, my mom had gotten married when I was like 10 or 11. And that my stepfather ended up moving our family from New Haven to Bel Air, Maryland, which was like a complete different culture shock. Yeah. And at the time of me moving, I found out I was pregnant too. Wow. And I had gotten pregnant by someone who was like 10 years older than me. He has now passed away, but it wasn't an equal relationship, you know, and so it definitely added to the things, you know, but I persevered, got straight A's throughout my last year in high school, got a full scholarship to Morgan. Wow. When I went to accept my scholarship, I was big pregnant. But I attended for a couple of years, and then my grandfather became ill. Excuse me, y'all, I'm dealing with a cold.
That's all good.
And so my grandfather got lung cancer, and again, remember, he helped to raise me. So I stopped attending school, and me and my daughter moved back to Connecticut from Maryland. I ended up, so I'm not in school anymore. I'm taking care of my grandfather. I ended up meeting who became my husband. We were married for 17 years, and we had the triplets. So I had already had my daughter, and I'm caring for my grandfather. He eventually starts to decline pretty heavily. We get hospice services in there, and the hospice nurses were so great. Like, they were the most amazing people to encounter.
Yeah, you don't hear that.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, hospice? Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so, I don't hear too many great stories about hospice.
Wow. Well, I had a really great experience with them, so much so that it kind of reignited my desire to go back to school and become a nurse. So after he passed, that's what I did, and that's when so I had been working, like while I was even in college, I had gotten trained as a CNA, so I had been working, doing little odds and ends as a CNA. I actually worked for a little while at Project More as a counselor while I was going back to school after the triplets were, because I had to get up out that house. I could not be in that house with them triplets after.
That's a lot of work, y'all.
That's a lot of kids. And luckily, I was so blessed. This Jamaican woman was looking to care for kids at home, and she was reasonably priced. So I had a nanny, you know, for the first couple of years of their lives, and it was really great that I was able to still pursue my education. So I went to LPN school. I started when they were 1 year old, and I graduated that program 15 months later, #1 in my class. Thank you. And that was just the grace of God, because I couldn't study, and life was going crazy. You know, we were young. We had gotten married, and then the triplets were born like a year later. What? So our marriage, you know, can you imagine what that would do to a 24-year-old and a 28-year-old's marriage? Definitely was hanging on. So it was, you know, a rough time. And I just kind of like dug in to school to just create a better situation, you know, with or without a husband. I wanted to be able to provide for my children. And so LPN happened. I started working in the community. Behavioral health was my first area of nursing. So I would do med-admins to people in our community who were struggling with mental health issues. And that went really well for a while until I was working as an LPN. You have to work under the license of a registered nurse. And I started noticing that like around holidays, the registered nurses would take my visits because they wanted to make extra money to support their families. But not giving a darn about mine.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm never going to be at this kind of, at these people's discretion ever again. So I went back to school. I did a self, so you don't go to classes, you kind of like challenge exams. So I did a self-motivated nursing program called Excelsior College, and I got my RN and started working as a registered nurse.
Bro, I have to give you your flowers, because to all the viewers that are out there, especially young girls, right? Hearing your story, to me, it's amazing, because despite the challenges you face, having your daughter, having a rough marriage, leaving Connecticut, going to Maryland, and then coming back to Connecticut, getting remarried, having triplets, and still manage.
Only one marriage at this point.
Oh, well, one marriage. My apologies. But having triplets and still having the courage, the strength, and the confidence to say, you know what, I want to continue to be successful. I want to continue to further my education and not give up. And the reason why this show is important to the world and us is because this show, Smile Through the Fire, is about smiling through the hard times and the tough moments and overcoming your pain and turning to purpose. And that's why it's important to us having our guests on here to share those stories, to encourage and inspire those who are going through rough times and understand that you're going to go through trials and tribulations, but don't give up. You're going to fall, but how do you get back up? So I want to know, like, you mentioned your faith earlier, and to me, that's what this show is about. That's what I'm about. That's what a lot of us are about, and that's what we want people to be about, is understanding what your faith is and understanding having a relationship with God is very important, because despite what you go through, you got to love God more than anything else.
Absolutely.
And He's going to lead your steps. So just tell me about your faith, because to me, it's inspiring to hear your story, how you were able to manage and go through all the tough times and managing 3 children at a young age, or 4, right? Like, where did you get the support? Where did you get the strength? And how can you even give up?
Well, I definitely got the strength from my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Amen.
Like, I will not say that at all times I acknowledged Him as I should. I didn't necessarily. Now every day I get up and I say thank you, God, for this day, and order my steps. And when I need a parking space, I'm like, Lord, help me, find a parking space, whatever it is. But because I literally acknowledge Him in all my ways, I can't say that I was necessarily doing that. I wasn't mature in my faith at that point, but I always had that foundation. So even to this day, because of the fact that my mother kept me in church, we were in church Sundays, Wednesdays for Bible study, choir rehearsal. I sang in all the choir. I did all the things. That foundation of faith, sometimes it'd be a bad time or something would be happening. I feel overwhelmed, and a song would come to my spirit. Something to tell me to just keep going, or that God's got me, or to smile because it's gonna be all over in the morning. Whatever it would be, and that definitely propelled me. Also, I had kids to support. I could, lay around and make ends meet for myself, but I didn't. I knew I had to provide for my children, and at a rate that they deserved. My oldest daughter is brilliant, and she had started a business as a 13, 14-year-old teenager.
Wow.
And was watching the History Channel and learned about Choate Rosemary Hall in Wallingford, and that's a private school that presidents have attended. And so she's like, "Ma, I want to go there now." Here I am. At the time, I'm an LPN. She is the oldest, and they're 7 years apart. So she helped me with the kids. And the kids were into everything. They played baseball, basketball, and I'm a nurse, so I'm the team mom. I'm showing up to all these things, and I probably was working 3 jobs. Only by God's grace. Only God's grace got me through all of that. But she decided she wanted to go to Choate. I'm like, all right, let's apply. Yeah. She gets in. She gets a full scholarship. It requires her to move out and live on campus, because it would have been
That's a serious school.
I didn't know about Choate. And shout out to your daughter, your oldest daughter too. Shout out to you being successful and staying on top of your education, and also supporting your mom, Taylor. You're a good woman.
She's a doula and a lactation consultant.
Look at Listen, man. Listen, we gotta get this. I love hearing these wonderful success stories. But Choke is a wonderful school. I didn't know about Choke until one time I was coaching at Greenwich Academy. I was coaching all girls school, and we played against them. And when we got up there, I was like, whoa. And then how I knew how powerful Choke was is when Power, the series Power came out, and they actually filmed.
Tyreek went.
Yeah, exactly. So
they called my daughter Little Neffy. Like, she the real Neffy.
That's crazy. So yeah, that's amazing that you were able to really overcome those challenges and be where you are today.
And one thing I do want to say about that is that it was important because this was a dream, something that she had, and I wanted to show her that it was possible. Like, it's not some pie in the sky thing. And so we made it happen, and we accommodated that. Like, I accommodated that because I think at the time my husband and I were separated. And so I let her live on campus, and I found ways to make ends meet with the children, with the kids, so she could pursue. Because it's not, those kids weren't her responsibility.
Absolutely,
they're mine. So I had to figure it out so that she could pursue the things and not be stifled by my decisions or my responsibilities.
Where do you think that she got this vision from, this strength from? Like, what do you think what motivated her? What do you think she got it from?
Well, honestly, I never really acknowledged this in such a way until recently, but we come from entrepreneurs. You know, like my family in the South were sharecroppers, so they took their spots and tried to work their land and make a way. And when that didn't work, my grandfather moved to Connecticut. He worked for Pratt & Whitney for many years, but he also had like 20 side hustles. Like, he would clean banks, he would paint, he would do these things. So entrepreneurship was in my blood, you know. And so my grandfather was an entrepreneur doing several different businesses, and my mother, growing up after she got married and settled, she had a home daycare that I had to work in. So she was an entrepreneur. So and entrepreneurship oftentimes is solving a problem. We had a dog, he had finicky eating habits, so she found a way to make food and treats for him and began selling them to the community. So that was kind of how it began. So I think, you know, having that history at this, and my ex-husband, he owns retail stores. So he had been, you know, entrepreneurial as well, and I think it just kind of rubbed off that, you know, you can create your own situation and thus create wealth.
Wow. So speaking about entrepreneurship, and let's get to that, right? So tell us a little bit about your journey from the medical field, being a nurse, and now being a guru, which they call you, the guru of marijuana. Where did that come from? How do you manage to get in that space? And for all the entrepreneurs out there in the world, because we're going worldwide with this podcast.
I know, that's right.
Right? How did you get involved in, it's a tough business, right? We know it's not a business for women, and we know it's not a business for minorities. So what led you to that entrepreneurship world, and how did you approach it on a holistic thing? Because I know, you know, doing my research on you, I know you kind of like teaching classes and want to help people to heal from it, because everybody looks at marijuana like it's a bad thing, but let's be real.
It's a great thing.
It's legal. I don't smoke, but you know, I don't tell people they shouldn't smoke, but you know, I always tell people, you know, do it in moderation. Don't indulge in it too much, because you know, it might turn into something else. But what made you get into this space?
So entrepreneurship in general.
In general, what made you get into the?
This is not my first business.
You're the guru. You're the guru of this. So just tell us about the entrepreneurship world, and then get into the Lit Haven business.
So to be honest, my first business was born out of the fact that I had a friend who had come home from prison and was good with his hands, like he was a good. So we opened a home improvement company. I opened a home improvement company, give him work. And it was very successful. Like the first month we made like $20,000. I was like, woohoo, okay, this is a thing. And then at some point after that was doing well, I wanted to lean into my nursing background, and so I started a home care company, and it was non-skilled, so PCAs, homemakers, companions, It was inner city based. We hired people from New Haven to care for people from New Haven.
Nice.
And that was definitely a challenging business in that I dealt with reimbursements from the state, which weren't sufficient to actually pay livable wages. So I would supplement at the time. COVID happened, so now we got sick and dying people, and asking individuals to go in and care for them while they're, putting themselves at risk and dealing with their own families and issues was difficult, but we were able to overcome. And then I got the most beautiful contract with the school system where I was sending in my employees to help the school nurses manage COVID testing, because the kids had to test every day and things like that. And so that kind of led into around the same time. Well, actually a little before that, my grandmother, my father's mother, who was like, now if you ask me where I got my community love and social workish kind of skills from, it would be her. She was a juvenile screener for the city of New Haven's police department, and that consisted of basically if anyone under 18 got arrested for anything, my grandmother would run down on them, basically, find them where they are, go in their house, ask their mother, well, what is going on? Let me see your refrigerator. Let me see what y'all got in your closet. And see, well, this is why he's out stealing. There's no food. Let's get them some food. Let's get her some skills so that she can have a way to sustain and provide for her family. And so I, as a little girl, I'd be walking around city with her, and people would come up and be like, you saved my life, Wow. And so she was extremely significant. Hattie Lynn Turner was her name. If you Google her, she did amazing things. I actually just found a lot of her writings where in the 60s she was writing about programs to make sure that we focus on community and some different things. So she was definitely an integral part of that. So she ended up having an aneurysm, and the aneurysm, she only survived because she was at a funeral for a city official, and so there were firemen, and so they were able to.
She was blessed. That was God.
Absolutely, because most people it hits them suddenly, and
they're gone.
Yeah, and they're gone. But they did save her life. She went through rehab, ICU, rehab, and then she ended up coming to live with me. And I'm like, I'm a nurse, I do this, I take care of people, it's gonna be no problem. It was every problem it could possibly be. And, and it was all on me and my children to kind of like care for her. And after a month, it was almost like impossible. And again, being a woman of faith, I got to the point where I just sat and I prayed, and I was like, God, how do I help my grandmother? And this is not, I'm not being extra, I'm not adding to this story, this is the honest to God truth. I'm praying, I think I was in the shower, and it came to me clear as day, my grandmother telling me that she had severe arthritis throughout her body. She did not do well with traditional medication, so she would smoke a joint and take a bath to get her body moving. So imagine after months of being in the ICU, you're stiff, they're giving you these meds, but they're not working on you. And like, she just was wheelchair bound, not talking, depressed, like withdrawn. And so I was like, okay, well then we're gonna get grandma high. This must be what we gotta do, And her caregiver luckily was a consumer. And so, because I was paying someone to come while I was at work, and I was like, listen, you get my grandma high and see if that helps. And literally within a month of us starting to get cannabis in her system, she started walking with the walker, talking, engaging. I mean, the kids have her on video making jokes. They said something about, she said, your mother. Like, it just is so funny to see, because it was such a complete turnaround and back to herself. Remember, this is a pillar of the community, someone who took pride in her interactions with people. They were important, taking care of people. And so for her to be devastated. Anyway, so I'm a nurse, and I've been taking care of people in the community for a decade at this point and never seen anybody get better, really. People might maintain, but they weren't getting better like I had just seen before my eyes. So I'm like, I know weed, I'm from New Haven, I know what weed is. I wasn't a consumer at the time, And I hadn't really, I think I Bill Clinton one time in high school, you know. I puffed it, but I didn't inhale, so I was like, what is this about? I don't even like it. But I was like, I know about weed, but I don't know about it healing people. Let me study this. So that's when I went to the Northeast Institute of Cannabis.
That's where it came from. I was like, all right, let's get to the really gritty of it. Let's really find out. Thank you for sharing.
And so they had this 12-week course where I would go every weekend. So remember now, my daughter's at Choate. I'm a new RN. I got the triplets, and I'm driving to Massachusetts every weekend for 2 10-hour days of classes for weeks.
Wow.
And so I started studying cannabis. I learned about the science of it. I'm learning about how cannabis helps to manage symptoms and, you know, how to apply it medically to people's lives. And that was exciting to me too, but I'd say the most significant part of my education there was learning about prohibition. And learning that cannabis was not, because, you know, they tell you, you know, it's all these, it's terrible, it's all, you know, God forbid, you know what? And then learning that it wasn't prohibited because there was a bunch of car accidents or people dying because there weren't even cars really like that out in the street.
Alcohol is more dangerous than weed, by the way.
Absolutely. But learning that, you know, racism played into its prohibition in the 1930s. Look up Harry Anslinger. You look him up, you'll know.
She educated y'all, by the way. Just make sure y'all take notes, all right?
Yeah, Harry Anslinger was part of the whole Reefer Madness movement, and he went around from state to state basically saying that we need to criminalize this plant because of the people who consume it. There was also a financial, you know.
And you got to remember, the pharmaceutical companies, there's no way to regulate. You're gonna grow it in your backyard. You can't make Tylenol in your backyard. You gotta buy it from somewhere.
Exactly. So so I found out about prohibition, and then like learning. I lived through the war on drugs. I was in high school in the 90s. So like I remember my freshman year. We came into school. It was an announcement made that this young man had been shot and killed, and it was someone I had gone to preschool with. And they shut down the school for the day. They sent in counselors. Like, we were able to talk and take a moment to grieve and so on and so forth. And that was the first one. By the time I left high school, Hill House, in my junior year, we had countless people either murdered or going to prison. And this was all, to really like put it together, that this all started just because of a $5, you know, bag of weed half the time. And that led to, you know, the mass incarceration system, and realizing that this was all done to my community on purpose. Like, I got like a real righteous indignation about it. And at the time, Massachusetts, I'm up there for these classes, they're legalizing. So this is like 2017, 2018. They're legalizing, well, maybe it's before that, way before that. They officially did it in 2018, but this is like 2015. So the teachers and the instructors are advocates. They're, you know, the people who are advocating for legalization, and they're saying, you know, communities destroyed by the war on drugs should have their first opportunities in this industry. And so I'm like, yup, and if Connecticut does it, I'm gonna make sure that social equity is at the forefront of this legislation. And I had never ever been to the Capitol. I didn't know. I had never spoken to legislators, but I connected myself with a national organization called Women Grow. I started attending their meetings in New York. I eventually bought the license to Women Grow in Connecticut and started having these information sessions, and I'd invite people from across the country in the cannabis industry to inform the community about cannabis. And they were like these cool parties. I had food, and, you know, we all got dressed up. No, we would smoke afterwards, but I never was a distributor of weed until recently, of cannabis products.
Let's get that clear, right?
No, but from that, between the education and me working with advocates in Massachusetts, and then getting to know about the culture of cannabis and kind of hanging with the cool cannabis people in New York, I was like, I really want to do this. I want to be a part of this. And I had already gotten my entrepreneurial feet wet. So I said, what do I do? So one day I had gone to a meeting and I was like, my name's Kebra. I'm a nurse from Connecticut and I want to be in the cannabis industry. And everybody I spoke to said, but you're a nurse and this is medicine. Do something with your nursing background. I was like, you're right, by the end of the night. And that's when Canna Health came. So Canna Health was medical cannabis certifying centers. So I got people basically their cannabis cards here in the state of Connecticut. Wow. We certified thousands of people. At one point, there were almost 70,000 people registered in the state of Connecticut. And I probably give myself credit for about half of that.
Well, that's big. That's a big deal.
Yeah, we had 6 locations within the state, a couple up and down the eastern. We started in DC and Maryland, some different places, and Canna Health was really a great forum to not only just get people their cannabis cards, though. So. We're going to get into this cannabis talk now, right? So I just want to preface this by saying, I tell people all the time, cannabis is a tool. Now, it's a tool that can be used in several different ways. Healing, financial growth, creating space and opportunities.
And education.
And so I leaned into all of those. And so as we're getting Canna Health off the ground and we're starting to really focus in on our community, because there was only one person who was certifying people in our area. That was Dr. Judith Major in Monroe, Connecticut. So y'all, I don't know if y'all know Monroe.
No, I don't.
Don't nobody want to drive in Monroe after nighttime, especially if you look like us.
Yeah, it's dark up there. I only go to Monroe to play in sports basketball.
Exactly.
That's about it.
And so Canna Health was dead smack in the middle of New Haven, and we would, people would be like, what I gotta do to get a card? And I'm like, man, just be your black inner city self and you're fine. Because we would come in and assess people for PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is generally associated with veterans, like people who go off to war, they experience a horrific life-changing trauma, but they get to leave the war zone and they go back home to heal, hopefully, and get their needs met. But in our case, in our communities, we suffer several traumas. Oh my God. Traumas at home, traumas at school, traumas in the community. Like we literally have kids walking by memorials and seeing drug addicts like every day, and this is trauma.
Shootouts and a whole bunch of stuff, a whole bunch of violence.
Right, and not having access to proper education, health care, food, housing, all of the things that are done by our government to us, and the systems to us. And so through Canna Health, I was able to help people understand that the reason why they couldn't keep a job and had these horrible relationships and, didn't get along, because they're hyper vigilant is because of your traumas. And now that we know that you're not gaming the system like you have, because we did an assessment. So it would be like, you had to check off all the areas of trauma you experienced in your life. It'd be like, have you ever experienced or known someone who was a victim of homicide? Someone who committed suicide?
So everybody should get their card. If you want to listen, I want my card. I don't smoke, but I want my card. Just in case.
They got the juice now too. I see them.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of ways.
We're going to talk after the show, because I might need my card, because I got a little bit of, anxiety a little bit.
But it was a social justice, thing to really help, number one, people understand their traumas, address them, and then we made referrals to therapists so people could really start to heal while they manage the symptoms of trauma with cannabis. And then we also, though, now this is another thing that I'm sure the police weren't too happy with me about, but like my weed men, the ones who were, I was like, come get your card. You have traumas too, but come get your card to be safe so you're not arrested while you're out here. Before legalization is available to our community, we're saying this is medicine. Thank you for being our street pharmacist and providing access, and this is a way to keep you safe.
I just want to say this real quick.
Go ahead. I wanted to ask you, because I know that you said that your grandma had arthritis. She started smoking. She started feeling better.
Yeah.
Can you just list some of the stuff that people don't know that marijuana can help you with?
Okay, so definitely PTSD, that's the first one. Trauma, and I'll give you an example. Like some people have nightmares related to their trauma. If you consume cannabis, it decreases your REM sleep cycle, so you never go into that dream phase. So it keeps you from having those night terrors. Blood pressure issues. Cannabis is a vasodilator, so it can help to drop your blood pressure, but you also have to be careful, you know, that if you're on blood pressure medications or you tend towards lower blood pressure, that you're monitoring that. But if you have high blood pressure, it can help. And different strains do different things, and it affects everyone's body differently. So there's a lot of trial and error that, you know, you might need to go to find the right things that work for you. But, you know, like a good sativa, which, well, we can go into the science of it, but that's like an upper. So there's sativa, indica, and hybrids. Most cannabis plants right now, or cannabis products, are hybrids. So they're a mix of both the up and the downer, but it might be one or the other. But sativas are good for like focus and attention. So if you have ADHD or things like that, you might consume a sativa to go to work, because that'll help you focus on the things that you have to do. If you have extreme pain, indicas are good for pain. If you have difficulty sleeping, indicas, especially with CBN, which is a cannabinoid. So THC, CBD, CBN, those are all cannabinoids.
CBDs and all the letters and all.
Yes.
But kids keep getting A's in school. No C's and D's.
Now, what I would love to highlight the importance of like how you still are able to manage to help the community. And I want people to notice that when you're in position of entrepreneurship or philanthropist, it's always good to provide resources and opportunity for the people in your community so they're safe and they have access to things that they didn't necessarily wouldn't have access to, and also educating them at the same time. So when you mentioned that the police are pissed off at you because they don't want us in position to know the things that could benefit from us, you know, the things that we could benefit from people like yourself. So I just wanted to say, you are the GOAT, you know what I mean? And I also want to highlight how you were just recently selected as Businesswoman of the Year 2026. What's that all about?
Well, thank you.
Congratulations, by the
So the Southern Connecticut Black Chamber of Commerce, they chose Lit New Haven for our work in the community, and we've only been open. We opened in May.
You serious?
Yes.
I mean, all the success and all the things that I'm hearing, I feel like you've been open for a long time.
No, so I mean, again, I've been doing this work. I sit on several boards. I still work with community organizations, violence prevention. Those are things that are close to my heart. So that's kind of where a lot of it comes from. But I was integral in getting cannabis legalized here in the state and did a lot of advocacy work. And I think that because I was literally the only black person advocating for cannabis legalization and for social equity. And that was important to me, that we were very clear that cannabis could not be legalized if there weren't three very distinct pillars. And that was that we create entrepreneurs in this industry who come from communities affected by the war on drugs, that we reinvest in communities that we've stolen from because of the war on drugs.
Are still in prison
and that people get out of prison and have their records cleared. So those were the three pillars that were non-negotiable, and we were successful in getting it done. Is cannabis legalization perfect? No. Is the licensing structure perfect? Absolutely not. But we have, you know, a way.
Change has been monumental, though.
Yes, the change has been monumental. The day that cannabis was legalized, 40,000 people's records were automatically expunged.
So that's 40,000 people that need to watch this video.
Yes.
She helped you get that off.
40,000, man. We need y'all to subscribe to Smile Through the Fire on YouTube and check us out on Instagram, because you know what I mean. She has a wonderful story, and we still haven't really dug into too many. Like her list of greatness is impeccable. So I just want to say, I got to give you your flowers. I'm proud of you, and I'm we're excited to have you on the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So why do you think the holistic approach is important to the people in our neighborhood?
Because we aren't a monolith, Like, everybody's different. We all have different needs, different desires, different wants, different issues, different health concerns. And you can't, let's see. I can't say, like, you lack this knowledge, let me educate you about this, that, and the third, and you're hungry. You're not going to hear me.
Absolutely.
Like, there's no way for me to address certain things without addressing all the things. And so that's what a holistic approach is. You look at the entire person. You don't even just look at the person. You look at the people they're attached to, how they affect the decisions they make, and then you help them make healthcare decisions based on where they are and what supports and resources they have.
Wow,
and that's important.
Wow, that's amazing. So, for someone like myself who's an entrepreneur, and my brother Max over here, and what advice would you give us if we wanted to get involved into the marijuana business as far as, like, investing into it? Because I've asked questions, I've been approached recently, and there's another question with this question as well, that someone who approached me about getting involved in the marijuana business was telling me they were trying to find someone as the face, right? Someone who has a criminal record, so they can be able to get their license and use them as the face and they'd be the investor, but not, there were grants out there for those who could start their own, but basically he was saying that the person who's been affected by it, as far as you're, a felon, you're able to get your license and also be a part of the business. So tell me a little bit about that. Maybe I'm saying it the wrong way, but I know I was approached by it, so maybe you can educate us and tell us, are they really focusing on that avenue? It wasn't just all talk.
I wouldn't say it was all necessarily all talk, but it just is a lack of, knowledge about what really is the case. So in order to so I have a social equity license. In order to qualify as a social equity licensee, you had to have a couple of factors. You could not have made more than at the time I applied, it was like $263,000 that year. You had to prove that you either spent the last 5 years or the first 10 years of your life in a disproportionately impacted area, New Haven, Hartford, Bridgeport, Stanford, and you also had to, so was that? Was there something else? Those two things were, and then or
being incarcerated too, right?
No, that is not one of
That's not one of them. Okay, so that was okay.
No, in New York, that is one of the that like gets you to the front of the line. Gotcha. Or did, I don't know what they're doing now, but now no.
So, if someone who been affected by it, right, and they don't have the capital, how do they approach getting involved into the business? They don't have the capital and investment part of it. Like, where do you find the capital? Because I know it's an expensive business world to get involved in, right? And it's a lot because people don't really know. So how do you educate us to really understand what are the steps to take if you want to get involved into this business? Okay,
so there's a couple of things. So I have a couple of licenses that I'm approved for. One of them is a large-scale cultivator. So if you want to be a large-scale cultivator and have a social equity license, that ship has sailed. They had a one-time license window, and that's no longer available. They are continuing to do lotteries for licenses, and they do have a special category for those who qualify as social equity, and then regular, people who don't. And so there's a specific route for you that just lessens your fees, but the overall expense of opening a dispensary and then the exorbitant expense related to opening a cultivation, including a $3 million licensing fee for someone who qualifies as social equity. So remember, I told you couldn't make more than $263,000, right? But they give you a license that costs $3 million. And the rationale behind that, from the state's perspective and legislators' perspective, is that they want you to partner with big business.
So, see, and that's what I'm saying. Is like, how do you say that people who've been affected by it are able to get in those rooms, but don't have the capital to get the investment part? So where do you think somebody been affected? Where do you think I'm getting $3 million from?
Exactly. And it has created inequitable relationships and partnerships. Most people who have social equity licensees are frontmen, essentially. They qualify, but they don't make decisions about their business. They don't get to say, and they don't get any say. And that's not.
They don't get a percentage.
They do get a percentage.
It's, you're the face. You're not the brain.
Right. And that matters. Like, absolutely. I have a social equity license, and I originally was partnered because you had to with big business. We very quickly, I don't know why you would want to partner with the person who advocated for social equity, does all these social justice things, and think you're gonna be like, no, we don't care about communities. Well, then
we're in the wrong
deuces. And that's basically what I've had to do. But where am I going with this? Just it creates these inequitable relationships, and it's very expensive. My cultivation, on top of the $3 million, is about 20 million, anywhere between 15 and 20 million to bring to life, and so imagine coming to that with very little money, in the scheme of things, but you're supposed to have 65% ownership, and then this investor has 35%. How's that gonna work? Wow. So there has to be creative ways to make this work, and it is not in alignment with what the goal is of social equity.
It's kind of discouraging to our people who's been affected by it, and the people who are leading these industries don't look like us, especially they've never been impacted by it, right, or doing hard time in prison, or just wasn't socially impacted in their community by it. But it just amazed me. But I want to get to it because we got a little bit of time left. But I feel like we got to do a part 2 with you because you got so much knowledge and wisdom to offer the community, and I think it's important. Well, one thing I would like to know, because I'm curious, and I feel like you're so well put together. You're a beautiful young lady, and you have all these attributes, and you're busy all the time. Where do you find time for yourself? What's the hobby besides not working, not being a mom and a grandma? What do you do for yourself? What's the life like in Kebra's world? Are you dating anybody? What's going on in your life right now?
So right now, first of all, I am the queen of balance. I'm a Libra, and it shows in everything that I do. I will work. Yeah,
she just celebrated her birthday, by the way. Her birthday party was lit at Lit Haven. You know what I mean? I was there. It was a wonderful time, and her place is beautiful. So check it out, by the way.
Thank you. But I definitely balance a lot of work with play. I go to the spa. I go for stretches. I just lay and I love baths. These are all things I travel. Of course, with the new business, I haven't been doing a lot of that. But, I've worked really hard, throughout my life. I'm not I've had, like I said, most times I've had 3 jobs at a time, 3 full-time ones. And so, I balanced that a lot, especially at the end of my nursing career. I did a lot of hospice, so it was 1 week on, 1 week off. So that week I was off, I was in the sky, or whatever. But I definitely balance it. Faith, definitely. My faith is very important. So I pour that into everything I do. No, I'm not currently dating. I'm married to God right now, and I don't mean that. Listen,
I'm with you on that, man. Yeah. Listen, I'm sure a lot of men are probably intimidated by you, because successful women and women who are empowered and independent and have all these great things. Do you find that men are afraid to approach you?
Well, they don't generally approach me, so I would say no. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I feel like sometimes I'm God, you must got a little cloak over me spiritually that I feel like sometimes I'm not even seeing. But it's okay. I don't even need that pressure or that interest right now, because I'm very hyper focused on the success of Lit, of getting the cultivation off the ground, and of really I just turned 49, so
49, y'all. Look great. All y'all young girls out there, this is what 49 look like, so you better make sure you look like this at 49 years old.
But yeah, I just turned 49, and I feel like in this last decade is when I really just started to value myself in a way I never have, like to know myself and know what God thinks about me. And so if you can't come with God energy towards me, then I don't want it. Like,
hold on, say that again. For all the women out there and men, what type of energy you think that people got to come? Because people get relationships, even friendships, get it twisted. And that's why I be trying to tell people, if you ain't come with that God energy, stay away from us.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely. Stay away from us.
Because we don't want no distractions. We got goals.
Yeah.
We're trying to invest into things.
Yes.
We're trying to make our community better.
Yes.
I just want to say thank you so much. We got to do a part 2 because you are amazing. Before we end this show, where did Lit come from? Lit New Haven. Where did that name come from?
So I'm that type of person. Like, I say that all the time. I used to say it all the time. And I was partnered again with a corporate group, and they were trying to get me to name it like their corporate name, and I was like, ew, absolutely not. And I was like, it's gotta be Lit. And I'm like, oh, it could be Lit, and I kind of looked, and so I have the city after. So each dispensary, I'm gonna have a total of 3. So each dispensary would be Lit in the city that we're in.
All right, so listen, let our viewers know where they can find you. You know what I mean? Because she's not a secret. She's available, but she's single. Leave her alone. You know what I mean? Go ahead. Where can we find you at?
So on social media, I know it's corny, y'all, but it's KBreezy494. And on Facebook, Kebra LaShawn Smith. But you can email me, Kebra at Lit New Haven. Lit is located at 169 East Street in New Haven, Connecticut, and our web address is litnewhaven.com.
One last thing for anybody who's not familiar, there's more than one way to use cannabis.
Oh, right? Yeah, we can do that on part 2. Okay. You don't have to smoke it.
So we'll do that on part 2. I promise y'all, it's so much more to discuss. We're going to give y'all part 2. Make sure y'all tune in and subscribe to Smile Through the Fire podcast on YouTube, and check out our Instagram, Smile Through the Fire. My co-host, my man Max.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate
y'all.
Conversation.
Let's make these shows, these episodes go #1. We predicting that. You know what I mean? Make sure y'all subscribe, man. Stay tuned, man. Kebra, proud of you. Good job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
I want to give a shout out to Sono Entertainment and Record Studio, Sweet Melody, and my man BK behind the scenes, giving us his access to the studio to record. Love y'all. Appreciate the support.